Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lytes Out podcast. We've got a very special prospect amongst us, 27 years of age, probably the youngest guy we've ever had on this podcast, but we kind of want to mix it up this time. There's certain people that jump on our radar because they've got interesting stories, and this guy is on the precipice that I believe that it is potentially greatness. So Grant Neal, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to sit down with you and get taken through this podcast with you.
Yeah. So let's talk about like your initial stages. First and foremost, like having gone through your history, you're probably one of the more polished people that we've ever had on here. I mean, and I'm just looking at your interviews and how you handle yourself. It's incredibly impressive. And I think what we need to do is we need to start from the beginning, where you first kind of understood like that championship mindset. And November 22nd through the 25th, 2006, Las Vegas, Nevada. Why was that special?
Oh, wow. You've done extensive research. That was my first major national title. And
how old were you?
I think I was the first time we were there, 2006, it would have probably been 11 years old.
So your first national title at 11, explain what took place.
We had the best little league football team in the country. It was, we had a ton of amazing players on that team. One of them, I think we have a mutual friend in Canyon Smith. He was on that team.
That's correct.
Yeah, and he's an MMA fighter now as well. But that whole team all has done some really amazing things professionally. Probably most notably is Christian McCaffrey, who now plays for the San Francisco 49ers. Max George, who is a part of the Rockies organization, as well as Reagan Todd, who is a part of the Rockies organization as well. And then I kind of went a auxiliary route, and now I am a professional fighter currently 4 ranked in Bellator.
Okay, so when I was doing my research, I actually got a hold of a team picture, and these 11-year-olds, like half of the team, looks like they've got a lot of broken furniture at home. Like there's a whole bunch of like little Vikings on that team, and you're like, whoa, that kid's dangerous. That kid's dangerous. And you guys won the national title. Like it's like quite, quite an achievement, quite an accomplishment.
I mean, we were a very serious team and super competitive from a young age. I remember, I think one of the games in Las Vegas was the first game that we had ever been losing at halftime. And every single person on our team was in tears. And it wasn't because we were sad or we felt sorry for ourselves. It was just as young kids, we didn't know how to express how we wanted to kick the crap out of somebody. And so we were crying, but then we put up like 40 points after that and didn't allow a touchdown. So we were extremely competitive as kids, and it's translated into the life I live right now.
Yeah, but and that carries over. Like that type of mindset's incredibly important, and you have to plant that seed like in a child if you want them to be a world champion.
Exactly. I think it's direly important, and man, it was an amazing journey to go through that with like-minded individuals. I think that's a big key there. Is like it's hard to manufacture that mentality if you're the only one producing that mentality. But everybody on that team was very like-minded in their pursuit of greatness. And
was that from a coach? Was that from a coach that did that?
So we had it was actually a coaches and dads. So I know I played against Christian in basketball, and Ed kept on calling me Baby Shaq. Because at that time I was just a big guy in the paint and was just mean. Basketball wasn't my sport because I wanted to be real mean, but I would just battle for rebounds and everything. And Ed went and talked to my dad and was like, hey, we're starting this, this football team with my son and a couple other of the guys that have had some previous football experience and a couple of the local Parker kids as well. What do you think about putting Grant in as well? And so I was excited to play football. My parents wanted to keep me away from it as long as possible, but that wasn't going to happen because I was a high-strung kid. I come from a family of a real hardworking people, and man, I grew up around on a farm and my grandfather's farm. I spent the summers there, and man, I wanted to ride bulls. That's what my goal was at that time. But my mom stopped me from riding bulls. She said that she doesn't know any old bull riders. So now I'm a professional fighter. So that worked really well for her.
You took the easier route. Route. So Christian McCaffrey, current San Francisco 49er, one of the top running backs in the entire league right now. What was it like playing on the same team with him? And have you ever sparred or brought him over to the MMA gym?
Oh yeah, of course. We're best friends to this day. He's a groomsman in my wedding. Man, we travel together, have conversations together, have lunch, always make time to pick each other's brain about certain things, because at high level combat sports is there's no stakes that are higher. And in order to manufacture that on the football field, he likes to talk to me about that mindset. And you can kind of see it in his tenacity and the way that he plays. By no means do I take credit at all for that, but it's really awesome to have someone else who's not in the sport but understands the sport talk to you a little bit about it, and vice versa. Because even that team mentality and that mindset of having like-minded individuals around you, that in order to have a championship program and team in football, I pick his brain about that all the time. Because although we're the only ones stepping into the cage, it's really important to have the right team around you to make sure that you're on point doing the things that you're capable of doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with your first fight. You had actually a canceled bout January 7th, 2017 with Sparta Combat. It was Nate Roberts. It was supposed to be your first fight ever. And the rumor was that Nate took a look at you at weigh-ins and left.
Yeah, that wasn't necessarily a rumor. It was we went to weigh-ins. We both got on the scale, and he just was like, "Yeah, I'm not showing up."
We're going to call that a win. We're going to call that a W.
That's how it goes sometimes. And after that, we were really careful on everything that we did. I have probably still to this day one of the goofiest fight pictures, pre-fight photos on a poster, because I wanted to I didn't want anybody to have any reason to cancel the fight before we actually got there. So Nate Marquart, he's like, put on your gloves in this picture, because everybody else is serious face and doesn't have gloves on and in a fight stance. I have my training gloves on and I'm smiling like this, and that got me a few fights.
Yeah, well, it appeared that a lot of the people in the Colorado regional scene, and if we might digress just a little bit. Okay, so I travel the entire country for bare knuckle boxing. I do marketing and I help on a grassroots level, and I'm always in the gyms. In all of my travels, there is not a single city in terms of MMA growth, prosperity, just girth than Denver, Colorado. And there's not even, that is the capital of the United States for mixed martial arts. Not California, not Albuquerque, it's Denver. Would you agree with that?
I 100% agree with that. I mean, man, there's such a pool of talent already from Colorado, but we also get a pool of talent from an auxiliary way too, and having access to the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. So a lot of those guys that may be interested in dabbling in MMA, man, there's so many gyms just around that area, or just a 30-minute drive, 40-minute drive up the road that they can just come in. And a big one was actually in COVID when they shut down the training center. A lot of those guys would come up and do wrestling practices with us in preparation, because we were the only sport open.
It's amazing to go and see the gyms in Colorado due to the fact that all of them are expanding. Like there's not, I mean, there's a big population in Colorado, but it's nothing like, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York. And the gyms, in terms of cleanliness and size, they're about 3 times the size in terms of quality and how many students are in every single spot. Like it never runs out. It's insane.
Yeah, the pool is amazing and it's awesome. We like the as you know, the MMA community, everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, of course.
And everybody's tapped in somewhere, or somebody that someone trains with. And the cool thing about Colorado is, like, I may be fighting a guy with a certain style, and I may not have a light heavyweight at my gym that has that same style, but I'll call the coach from Elevation Fight Team and be like, hey, do you have a South Paw, long, lanky person that likes to jump on necks? It's like, oh man, we got this kid he's an up and comer, but he'd be a perfect look for you. Boom. We're sparring there one time a week, and then I'm bringing them up to me one time a week. Or like, hey, I need to get some rounds with Curtis just to test my MMA wrestling, pick his brain.
Perfect. You're talking about Curtis Blades. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Curtis Blades. And then I'll do that. I'll go down there and get rounds with him. And then he's like, man, this is amazing, because he wants to go with someone who's very proficient in MMA wrestling that can push him. And then also somebody who is like fast. So he's like, man, we utilize that. Or I'll go, hey, Neal Magny.
That's my guy.
You've got a gas tank that is out of this world. Like, I mean, we have this gym joke. When he starts yipping, he goes, yip, yip, yip. Then if he gets 3 of those in a row, it's a long, long day for sparring. So we have every body type, everything that you need in the Colorado area. And all of us fighters have a great relationship. And so when you get to a certain level, it's not like you're not worried about, oh, am I going to fight this guy? Or, oh, this guy's looking at that. It's like, it's very open, and there's a lot of cross training. And I think that's why Colorado fighters are having so much success.
You guys have a lot of success, but you guys also have issues matching each other on the local events because everybody knows each other. So like you said, you had issues finding fights. Your second fight, they brought in a guy from Oklahoma, Isaiah Megan, and that was with Sparta Fight League, Jeff Cisneros. So that was your actual first fight. Bring us through the first time you went in there and you knew this is what you were going to do for the rest of your life.
Hey, so I knew I was a fighter. I digress some. When I was in high school, I had won a state championship in wrestling. At the time, I was also training at Landau Performance, strength and conditioning coach Lauren Landau. He cultivated a program that is amazing for MMA fighters and football players alike. So he trained a lot of MMA fighters and a lot of professional football players. And I would go there after school. And I would just sit there and watch. And at the time, I would see Brennan Schaub, Nate Marquart, Brandon Gertz. I'm seeing all these people, Pat Barry, like the whole group, Neil Magny, and I'm watching them go through this. Cody Donovan, Elliot Marshall, Vinny Lopez. I'm watching them, and Cody spoke at my school, and he's speaking to the football team and goes, yeah, fighting is this, and that. And then I walk up to him and he goes, yeah, you're going to be a fighter one day. And that was the very first person that told me I was going to be a fighter. And I looked at him and I kind of laughed. I'm like, yeah, maybe so. Now Cody is training a lot of guys at Elevation Fight Team. But anyways, going even further back to the first fight. So in that group, Nate Marquart was in that group. And Lauren Landau, when I got into the fight game, he said, you need to go and train under Trevor Whitman and Jacob Ramos, and then do everything that Nate Marquart tells you to do. Go be his shadow. And Coach Landau set that up, and the rest was kind of history. I just followed everything that Nate told me to do. Nate was like, hey, you need to be working your striking with Jake and getting that thing going. And in that first fight, I actually in the back, I missed the pad and broke my coach's forearm with an overhand right. And that was right before I walked out.
Yeah, that's good.
School, and I had no idea walking out, but I knew something was up because he put the Vaseline on like this and just kind of flung it on there. And then I ended up finishing that fight with an overhand right.
That's right. So you brought in a kid from Oklahoma out of Party MMA, 26 seconds, and that is your baptism into the sport of mixed martial arts. My question for you is, obviously you got a state championship in wrestling, as you had stated. Are you a traditional boxing stance in regards to throwing your punches, or are you leading with your power hand because of old wrestling habits?
So I was a left leg lead in wrestling, which was actually a very easy transition for me.
Okay.
I was always just like kind of unorthodox, and I only wrestled during wrestling season. I didn't go to any Pearler camps or anything like that. The amount of wrestling that I did literally consisted of the shortest season in all of sports in high school. And I attribute the state championships was, one, I had a lot of people coming down from the OTC beating the crap out of me, but also I just goes back to the days of competitiveness. I hated losing. Winning is cool. It's like everybody loves to win. Not everybody absolutely despises losing. Some people are okay with losing, and that was just never from 6 years old, 11 years old, winning a national championship. That was never okay with me. And that's what brought me to a state championship in wrestling. My junior year, I didn't have any technique. I won a state championship with no technique and beat Giangelo Hancock in the semifinals, who is a bronze medalist in the Olympics. So and then my senior year, I got technique, and I didn't have an offensive point scored on me the entire year. So
that's incredible. That's incredible. The one question or one statement that kind of comes through with champions is when we ask the question, do you like winning more or hate losing more? Like, which of the two, does your barometer go? And the legit people always say, no, I hated to lose. I couldn't. If you want to write your name on a piece of paper, I'm going to sign it faster. I can't even lose at that.
Yeah. I mean, it's to this day. Like, if I make eye contact with some of my friends that are on the football team that we grew up playing, and we're eating, I look at him, he looks at me, and now we're in a competition to see who can finish. But to this day. My fiance just she has to deal with it, but
it's what it is. Yeah. Ian Heinisch, another former training partner of yours, also a state champion wrestler.
Yep.
Have you guys had a couple goes in practice?
Oh, we've had some vicious goes. Ian and I get after it. I know he gets upset with me because he's the same way. He hates losing, and wrestling, like, he's a phenomenal wrestler too. So him and I go at it, and it's so much fun. Like he's one of the guys that can really push me in the wrestling game, and I can push him as well. So we utilize that to the best of our ability.
I think they're going to be making a movie about his life.
Oh, why wouldn't you? If I'm a movie director, he has the perfect story. It is one of the most amazing stories I've ever heard, and one of the most inspiring. I'm inspired by him every day. Got off a call with him 2 days ago, and still is amazing and inspiring.
So we had him on about a year and a half ago. Chris Lytle's my co-host. He's actually in Denver right now. And when we had Ian on, he spoke for about 90 minutes, and it was pure prison stories. It was, I mean, Lytle to this day, that's my favorite interview. It's like, I knew nothing about the guy. I came out wanting to see a movie about his life. But that's Ian Heinisch. Let's go to Joseph Chacon. They bring him in from Arizona, March 24, 2017, Paramount MMA. And it's your second fight, but you really, you got less than a minute of experience right now.
Yeah. So we're looking for a better guy moving up. My coach and Nate, they were like, amateurs doesn't matter. We want to fight the best guys that want to fight you. And so that, I think Joseph Chacon, I think he came in at like a heavyweight weight, and we still fought him. And and the reason behind it was, one, we needed cage time, we needed a challenge. We wanted to be prepared before we made the next step. And so my amateur career was very selective as far as I only wanted to fight guys that were good when I was an amateur.
And where I think that you guys also have an advantage in regards to the rest of the country, Joseph Cisneros is he's the promoter for Sparta Combat, and he understands what a fighter needs, and he's not affiliated with the gym, so all of the gyms kind of bounce off of him, and he keeps a real honest promotion, and he's bringing in guys from all over the country to fight for you. What was your experience with Joseph?
Or Jeff Cisneros? Yeah.
Oh, Jeff. I apologize. Yeah. Yes, Jeff.
I think you got confused with my opponent.
Yes.
Yeah. Jeff was an amazing promoter for me. He really allowed me to blossom in his promotion. I mean, we challenged him, and he rose to the occasion. We challenged him, one, because I was beating people in pretty quick fashion, and two, because I always wanted a tough fight. Like, I'm like, hey, we want the tough fights as an amateur because we want to be prepared for when we make that next jump. And he rose to the occasion, and man, he did a wonderful job in helping bring me up in the sport, especially as an amateur.
Yeah. So this is what Jeff does. So, for instance, he's a big ticket seller, wants to take a hard fight. That's usually a hard combination to find on the regional scene. Brings in Kitaro Cade out of Warrior Built MMA. He's 3-0 undefeated. You win your first title.
Yep.
After that, he brings in a guy, Sean Hudler, who's 2-0, but it's deceiving 2-0. He's got a win over black belt Eduardo Silva, who is one of the coaches at Babalu's gym in California.
Yep.
So you got a black belt from Rio de Janeiro as an amateur being flown in.
Oh yeah.
You can't get a harder opponent than that. Not at the amateur level.
Yeah. So I mean, I really, especially just in the Denver scene, I was like, yeah, we got to go and fight this guy. And I was excited. I was just happy he took the fight, and so at that point we still weren't even game planning yet. We hadn't even gotten to the level to where we were game planning per opponent. We were just developing my skill set. So I didn't really care, like, and that's what Nate and Jake and Gaethje and all those guys were telling me, all my teammates. They're like, we don't care who's going out there. We want someone hard who's going to challenge you, but this fight is about you. There's no reason to game plan. You're an amateur. Like we're not, there's no need to game plan this guy. If you do everything that you're supposed to do, it'll take care of itself. And so I didn't even game plan. My whole amateur career, maybe one we kind of game plan for, but I didn't really game plan until I got into a professional career.
Okay. How does that fight end?
I think it ended with submission. I think I broke his leg.
Yes. Yeah. You submitted him in the first round. Sean Hudler never fought again. Yeah. That was his last bout. You fly to Las Vegas with the premier amateur organization in the entire country, TuffnUff, March 30th, 2018. They bring in a guy from Hawaii, CJ Flores.
Yeah.
Flores, I should say, CJ Flores.
Yep. So yeah, that was a good one because TuffnUff reached out to Jeff. Jeff was like, I think it'd be a great opportunity. So we worked something out with them and Jeff and my head coach. TuffnUff was essentially bringing me in to lose to CJ. They had no idea who I was. They're like, I was just a Colorado kid, football player. Let's bring in this wrestler from American Samoa who's been tearing it up. And this will be an awesome fight for him to get the title. And they treated me like that the whole week. And, you know, they talk about Mamba mentality, Jordan mentality. I was pissed that whole fight week. I felt like I was treated as the guy to come in and get beat. And it was really just pissing me off. And my coaches and Jeff and all those guys let that happen. They just let it sit in there because they knew essentially what my capabilities were, but they wanted to see that little bit of fire in me. And that fight I was able to show a lot and really get the W there.
Well, one, it's the first time you're a B-side. Yep. That's important. But I don't think you realized you were a B-side until it was just, obvious to you once you got there. That's a really, really good experience. And a plane ride as well. It's a box that's got to get checked, man. You've got to take a plane ride, and the earlier the better.
I think that is so important. And to understand a fight week, it was awesome because I had Nate Marquart and I had Jacob Ramos in my corner. Jake won the Strikeforce belt with Trevor and Nate against Tyron Woodley. So they have everything dialed in. So I'm just going in there and I just 100% trust my coaches, trust my teammates, trust my partners. And that was a really good experience for me to understand how I handle fight week too. Because everybody handles fight week differently when you travel. And I honestly, after that experience, I loved traveling. I didn't have to worry about tickets. I didn't have to worry about people calling me the day of the fight, asking me where they're going to sit at my fight. I didn't have to worry about people calling me before asking what day my fight is on the day of the fight. And so just being able to only focus on the fight, that was a really cool experience. And I'm like, dude, I only want to fight out of the state.
Well, and on top of that, you're a big ticket seller as well. So Jeff Cisneros sending one of his ticket sellers out there. He's giving up a fantastic gate with somebody that he could headline with, for your benefit, not his. That's for sure. Nate Marquart, you've mentioned him several times up until this point. What are your feelings about Nate and your experiences with him?
I mean, he is a phenomenal mentor, phenomenal man, and he loves the Lord. And that is undeniable. And his conviction with the things that he does is amazing. And he really allowed me to walk in to my own light. and to have him as a mentor, taking me through what it means to fight and really help me understand what I'm fighting for and who I'm fighting for, and to be my not only fight mentor, but my spiritual leader as well. Man, that's nothing short of amazing.
Dude, Nate Marquart, we had Neil Magny on a few months ago, and Neil lived with him.
Yep.
Neil's like, nah, man, I'm living with Nate. It's like he's my everything. Like he showed me that fighting was a business and to take it serious and how to take it serious, and when to step on the gas and when to press the brake. Wanderlei Fight Team is an esteemed gym in Las Vegas.
Yes.
TuffnUff. I mean, like any promotion, it's kind of rough flying in your champion, but you also got to maintain the integrity of the belt. They bring in Eric Rolando Perez to fight you. He's 3-1, and he's a standout at the gym at this time at Wanderlei Silva's fight team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was a great fight. That was the first time I was fighting I think at the time he was a world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think he's either a brown belt or a black belt at the black belt level. And he also was a karate guy. And so Nate, being his background in karate, I was like, oh, I'm ready for this. I understand what to do. And it's going to be an awesome opportunity for me to see how I handle someone of that caliber and that accomplished. And Nate was like, hey, this guy, he's gonna be like point fighting you, because the last thing he wants to do is to get in the pocket with you. And so we were really just trying to press on the gas, and we lured him into the pocket one time in the either first or second round, and I hit him with a right hand and he went to sleep. And then I followed it up with another right hand on ground and pound, and I woke him up. And then the rest of the fight, he just ran away from me. And so I was just chasing him around the cage for the rest of the fight. And like, when I say running, I mean like even like turning at some points to just get away from me.
Like a mailman running from a dog. Is that
yeah. And so he ended up surviving. So kudos to him. And he got out of the cage without getting TKO'd or finished or in that. But I learned a really amazing lesson. And Nate said it's happened to him before as well. He goes, make sure that you're slow to finish when you have someone hurt. Because if you rush the finish, sometimes you hit them and they wake back up. And then you got to fight 2 more rounds. And so I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, like fools rush in. And like you could see it in boxing. Like in bare knuckle, we had Mike Richmond having Lorenzo Hunt out on his shield, runs in, gets clipped. The only punch he really got hit with, and he's out. It's the same thing, man. You gotta take your time. Take your time, for sure. Eric Rolando, again, sitting in my seat, it appears, well, you've got a gas tank. You can go 3 rounds, which is incredibly important.
Oh yeah. That's one thing that I prided myself on, is like, I don't care if I'm tired. I just won't be outworked.
Eric Rolando never fights again. That's number 2. This is going to be a reoccurring theme, dude. You got about over half your record never fights again after they fight you.
Oh wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, dude. It's like you make people feel things that makes them question themselves, for sure, 100%. Here's another guy, Juan Molina. You decided to make your pro debut February 23rd, 2019. Jeff Cisneros has you as his main event, and Juan Molina, South Paw.
Yep,
dealing with that.
Oh yeah, so dealing with the South Paw. I mean, we had a really tough guy. His name is Patrick Carey. He was in the room with me, and he was a former U.S. team wrestler. He wrestled at, he's from Chandler, Arizona, but he came and wrestled. I think he wrestled at Mines, I want to say.
Okay.
And then he did a stint in MMA, and that dude was an absolute beast, but he ended up having a medical condition that stopped him from competing again. But he was, during that camp, he was my main training partner. And he was a southpaw that was an absolute beast. And and he was a heavyweight. In all of his fights, he was knocking people out with head kicks. So he's a phenomenal wrestler, world team member wrestler, Greco, and knocking everybody out with head kicks. So if
That's
you can
insane.
That, amazing training partner.
Yeah, and probably impossible to take down if you try to take the leg.
Yeah, no, you're not taking him down. Yeah,
that's a pretty dangerous guy. You knock him out in 48 seconds. Juan Molina never fights again. August 14, 2019, Alpha Tori pulls out at weigh-ins as well.
Yep. That was a tough one. I really didn't know what happened. So Bellator flies me out, big time show, big time promotion, big time contract. The second fight as a professional fighter. I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm juiced. They bring me in against a tough prospect, supposedly. And I get there, and first day, everything is all normal. Oh, your opponent gets here tomorrow. He's from New York. This is just Connecticut. So they were going to fly him in tomorrow. They call me that morning and say, oh, well, Alpha Tori is not even in the country. I'm like, what do you mean he's not in the country? And I guess he was in Africa, and just he didn't show up to the fight. And I was like so like distraught, and they were scrambling to get a replacement. And at that point, I'm just young, but I was like, I'll fight whoever. I don't care whoever wants to, and none of the big names want to fight a young
like call Yoel. Yeah. Call
I'm
Yoel.
like, I'm saying every name in the book. I'll fight him. I'll fight that guy, and just young, and they couldn't find anybody that would take it that short notice.
How does a person sign a contract? Because you didn't sign a regional contract, because the event was this one. Obviously, you said Connecticut. So oftentimes Bellator will go to like a region like the Chicagoland area, and they'll sign little one-fight contracts to the local people to put tickets and seats. How are you a one-fight pro and on Bellator's radar already?
I was on Bellator's radar because I flew out with Brandon Gertz when he fought Saad.
Okay.
And he was the main event of that. And my manager at the time was just, or still is my manager, is just like, man, we got this kid that I really think that he can be extremely great. And I'm in California. I know that your staff is there as well. And Rich Chow and Mike Kogan were in Temecula, and we had a workout. And my manager
was it Dan Henderson's?
No, we had a workout. We were just working out in Temecula at the Hangar Casino. Mm-hmm. And I was actually preparing for an LFA title fight for 5 rounds for $500, because that's how LFA does things. But I was still going to do it because I was all like, hey, it's title fight, pro. LFA they say they don't pay their fighters because you're going to make it to the big show, which I don't understand. They make a lot of money. They should pay their fighters, especially regional fighters. They don't everybody's working 2 jobs on the regional scene, like in order to fight. Like, take care of these guys. But that's a whole different tangent.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. There's not a single thing I disagree with.
Yeah, that's a different tangent, and I almost fell into that, and getting paid $100 a round for a really tough regional fight. It's a UFC Bellator caliber guy that I'll be fighting. I think guy was supposed to fight ended up going to the UFC or something. So like,
yeah,
that's who I'd have fought him for $100 a round.
that's insane. That's insane.
But anyways, we're in Temecula, and my manager says, "Hey, I'm really high on this guy, but I don't want to just tell you. I want to show you. He's doing a workout at this time with his coach. You guys should just pop in there and watch him hit mitts." And I had no idea this was going on until afterwards. And I'm hitting mitts and with Jake, and I'm just cracking them, thudding them. Everybody is from the other side is like looking over, seeing what's happening on the mitts. And then Mike and Rich walk in, and they're just standing there and looking at me, and then they walk out. 30 minutes later, I had a contract from Bellator.
You know, I will tell you, a lot of people like to point fingers at the UFC and Bellator, you know, kind of poke holes and, you know, when they kind of poke fun. But if you subtract Aaron Pico, which I think was a fantastic lesson for the organization, if you subtract how he was treated initially or how the fights that they lined up, the prospects that Bellator has on their lineup right now,
It's ridiculous.
Not only is it ridiculous, they're bringing them along properly.
Exactly. I think that it's what they did with me is developmental contract, and then now we're climbing the ranks, you know.
Yeah.
Fighting guys like Karl Albreksons and those type characters that are veterans, and they're bringing me on like the right way. And that's a kudos to them and the matchmaking. And, you know, I just like to be active. So it's just like they had me extremely active during COVID. I was a little upset last year. I only was able to get one fight, but, you know, things happen and things shift. And when you start putting yourself in positions to have ranked opponents, things get booked, and you got to take fights that make sense. And so that's kind of, I understand that part of the game too.
What Bellator also does is they give you a couple really stiff challenges where it's an even shot on paper. You're going to have to figure this out. We're going to see what kind of horse we have. And they put you in against black belt Contact Fight Academy. Is a black belt from Full Contact Fight Academy, Texas. Jimmy Lugo. Jimmy Lugo at the time is 1-0, and he is a super hot prospect.
Yeah, he's a stud.
At 1-0, he's a hot prospect. Everyone knew who he was.
Yep. Yeah, he was a stud. We knew he was a stud coming in, but I was like, I did no care in the world. I'm just like, this is a stepping stone on my path. I mean, we still didn't even game plan for him. I mean, we were like, Grant, you need to get better. This is where we're going to get better at in this camp, and the rest will take care of itself. So we didn't even game plan, like break down an opponent. Okay.
So he's an IBJJF like champion in the black belt division. So like, why are you that confident in your jiu-jitsu defense?
So at the time I honestly was just anti-jiu-jitsu. I didn't respect the martial art that much. And that was a naive way of thinking, because I feel like every martial art now in my development has its place, and you can pull things from every different martial art. But in that time, I was just like, I'm not going to let a butt scooter beat me. That was my mentality. Like,
okay. So Mark Coleman comes on, like he's a legend within the sport of mixed martial arts and wrestling. And he's just like, hey man, here we go. Do you want to be a badass jiu-jitsu guy or a badass wrestler? He's like, is that a question? Does anybody question that?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a wrestling arrogance, but there's also a jiu-jitsu arrogance as well when it comes to wrestlers.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that got him in a lot of trouble, that fight.
You think that belly to back suplex at the end of the fight may have been a little arrogance on his end?
Yeah. I believe so. I mean, in order to implement his game, he would have to get me to the ground. 2, I was attacking submissions from the top and striking, so he was constantly defending. And when you punch a black belt enough, they turn into a brown belt, and then you punch them again, they turn into a purple belt, then a blue belt. So like this is not jujitsu. Jujitsu is a component of the sport. This is also not wrestling. Wrestling is a component of the sport. This is mixed martial arts. So the person that can put all of it together, doesn't matter how good you are at one singular martial art. If you can put it all together, you'll beat anybody. Yeah.
And all right, I'm obviously a pro wrestling side. You're the pro wrestling side. I always try to defer to like a third party. We had Dan Lambert on, owner of the American Top Team, and he said, okay, submissions in MMA, outside of a rear naked choke and a guillotine, he's like, how often do you see anything? And he's on his coaching staff, American Top Team, one of the largest gyms in the entire world, 2 Taekwondo coaches, 3 or 4 wrestling coaches, 1 jiu-jitsu coach. He's just like, it's kind of, you just need really defense right now.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing too is like, if you're a jiu-jitsu guy and you didn't grow up wrestling, and I will credit jiu-jitsu now, the cool thing about jiu-jitsu is they really do a good job of changing with the world and in the fight game. And so now they're starting to implement takedowns and takedown defense. And before, jiu-jitsu didn't really care about control. They didn't really care about takedown defense or taking somebody down. It's the gentle art. But now it's kind of transitioning. It's in this really cool phase of transition to where they're really implementing wrestling with jiu-jitsu and coming up. I mean, you're seeing some stud grapplers, like stud jiu-jitsu players.
So I attribute that to Gordon Ryan. He's like in the Danaher Death Squad. I mean, obviously past tense, but their implementation of like what jiu-jitsu is supposed to be is much different than like the early 2000s, like 2005 to 2007. Anyone that did leg locks to traditional jiu-jitsu gyms would say that's junk jiu-jitsu. You're not supposed to learn that. Don't do that. And it was just more like keeping healthy in practice than it was being practical in an actual fight.
Exactly.
And they had to shed those. And in my opinion, wrestling and jiu-jitsu are cousins that like to fight each other. So in regards to training, you've got some experiences with a few people that are standout. Cory Sandhagen, somebody that's really made a name for himself. What are your experiences like with him in the gym?
I mean, Cory is a ninja. There's no other way to describe it. He's a real student of the game. Awesome mixed martial arts practitioner, but also his mind and philosophy that he brings to fighting is something I pick his brain every time I have an opportunity to, because he's always got something new, always developing, and is always learning and always a student. So I'm always talking to Cory about his mentality, talking to him about how I feel about certain fights or what he thinks. And he's just been really awesome. I even had the opportunity to move around with him a few times just to see how he moves and to feel what he's doing to his opponents. The way he moves is so technical, so smooth, but yet you're having to think about 4 and 5 things all at once. It's overwhelming. It overloads the brain. It's amazing.
So you're a guy that picks odd angles. Like you take odd angles and they're quick. Like they're not like Taekwondo type odd angles. It's just you're watching movement, foot placement, and when you cut an angle, you really commit to it. I think that's probably your biggest asset.
Oh, for sure. The angles, that's a big thing that we work on with Coach Jake, and his sweet science and footwork it's all about those small angles. But he really didn't change much with wrestling. He always tells me, don't forget about wrestling. Your angle for your shot to be an easy shot is the same angle that's going to set up your right hand. It's going to set up your hook. going to set up that calf kick. So those angles are really an extension of what I've already been doing my whole life. It's the same, and it's the same thing in football. Like he said, these angles that you take in football in order to attack a running back or to set up a block on a linebacker, they're the same angles. And so he always reminds me, don't forget about that. And Cory's a master of creating angles. So, I mean, you just watch him, and it's phenomenal. So I always pick his brain about that every time I get a chance.
Yeah, that's excellent. Bellator brings you against Claude Wilcox. You win by ground and pound in the third round. They bring you back against Hamza Salim. Hamza Salim is 5-2 out of American Top Team Portland. I think that fight with yourself also changed him.
Yeah. I mean, he was on a tear. I think he was on a five fight win streak or 4 fight win streak.
Four. I think it was 4. Yeah, he got off to a slow start, really turned it around, and a lot of people were putting their horses on him. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, he was a tough opponent, like tough guy. I mean, I think I hit him with the inverted elbow, and he went to sleep on my back, and I pulled him out, and I didn't know that he was asleep. And so I just kept on ground and pounding him, and for him to survive that was just like, wow, this dude I don't know how he survived that, but it was a brutal beating the entire fight.
They bring you back. Jackson Wink has a guy named Maurice Jackson. He's 7-2. Another prospect.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I knew Maurice Jackson. I actually got to see him fight here on a Sparta card. He fought against Melvin Gillard. Yeah.
Knocked Melvin Gillard out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I knew he had great punching power. Melvin is tough dude. So I was just like, okay, this is gonna be good to see. And I knew he was a solid wrestler. I think he was like a former college wrestler. So I was expecting him to have like some pretty solid wrestling, be able to stop some takedowns and have good defense. And he'd been in the game for a while. So I was expecting a real tough fight out of that one.
Yeah, that was his last fight as well. He hasn't fought since 2020. Peter Straub is in your corner, one of your coaches. You've got, from my sitting here in a chair, you're a guy that likes consistency. And in your consistency, you find success. Jacob Ramos, Peter Straub, Brandon Gertz. Those are your cornermen.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, they are. Gertz is the engine. He has a way of pulling shit out of me that I can't even explain. He pulls things out of me that are very primal. He can get that like primal intent out of me at any moment. Like even when Brandon watches sparring, like he's saying things in sparring to where my sparring partners are like, Brandon, you're not allowed to watch anymore. Like you don't do it. I think it was, who was it? Alonzo Minifield and I were sparring in his preparation for his last fight. And him and I were in camp at the same time, and we're going at it. And Gertz is just in there, go, move, come on, more. And like Alonzo at one point looks up and is like, dude, stop. Because he just has a way of just getting me, like getting this primal instinct out of me.
Yeah, we're sparring. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's and that's the thing, and it's not even just that, it's just the intensity. So he's my intensity guy, and then Coach Jake is an absolute master in breaking down people's game and understanding the game plan. And I mean, he has like 6 world champions. I think 4 of them were in boxing, 2 mixed martial arts championships. So like he's been in the game forever. Him and Trevor Whitman started everything together. Yeah. So they're best friends.
Tease KOs was the
Tease
original
KO,
box.
yep.
Dwayne
Yep.
Ludwig goes over there.
Yep.
Trevor Whitman's kind of mind gets on, he gets on a little Ferris wheel. He starts taking a detour and, magic happens. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And that their system, they built their system together, all those guys. So, and that's the system that we've developed and stuck with. And then Peter Straub, when I remember I was saying I had a different outlook on jiu-jitsu. I brought Peter Straub in, one, because I really respected Ian Heinisch, and Ian Heinisch was like, hey, I'm working with this guy. He's amazing. I think you'll really like him. He's not just jiu-jitsu wins everything type guy. He understands wrestling. He understands that we're in MMA. He doesn't just want to make everything a jiu-jitsu match and say, this is the key to all success. It's like, no, we're in MMA. So I went over to him and did a couple practices, and I'm just like, man, you are an amazing coach in what I do, and it's developing my game and things I thought that I are already taken care of, and exposing things that I hadn't taken care of, and then allowing me to patch up those holes and get a lot better as an MMA fighter and as a human being. He's an awesome friend, awesome mentor, and man, it's a phenomenal coach. And he's just developed his game to where now, I mean, he's one of the really sought after coaches in the sport.
I don't think people understand how advanced Colorado is.
Oh yeah.
Like it's in regards to talent on in all facets. It's truly something that's mind blowing when you go and actually see it rather than just hear about this guy there, another guy over there. But it's shocking. Tyree Fortune from Alive MMA, he's 5-0, coming in undefeated. Another hot prospect, another guy that Bellator is kind of trying to figure out where he's at. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, Tyree, he had beaten some really good guys and
really good guys.
Very dangerous opponent. We knew his fight style, but we also knew that my mentality and my abilities could really give him a lot of trouble. So we just were like, hey, let's press on the gas with this guy. We actually game planned for him. I think that was the first fight that we game planned for. And the game plan, we saw a hole in his game, in the, even though he's is accomplished in jiu-jitsu, and he says that that's like a part of his game that he's really solid in. There was a couple mistakes that he would make constantly in all of his fights. And so it was a reoccurring mistake, and Peter found it, and we exploited that mistake, and we were able to get that finish.
That's excellent. So 5-0. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing like when Coker and those guys are just kind of looking at prospects, the finish is the most important thing.
Oh yeah.
You can decision people all day long, but that finish is incredibly important. And after that, they put you in against a guy, Easy Alex Polizzi. He's out of Chosen Few. Obviously, Josh Steary, Damian Decora. This is one of the fights that you finally got pushed at.
Yeah, it was definitely a push, but it was more so a push on myself and my mental. He was talking a little smack and saying that I wasn't a good wrestler and that I wouldn't beat him in MMA wrestling or regular wrestling and stuff. And that really I'm competitive, and he got that edge out of me, and boy did I win the wrestling, but I ended up coming up short in that decision. I lost a split decision to him. When we look back at the fight, I was doing really well on the feet, landing all the shots, big shots on the feet. But then I would shoot in or wrestle and just to prove a point. And that was a very tough lesson to learn. I watched that fight over again, and I still feel I did enough to win that fight. I feel like the decision was a little bit taken away from me, but you can't go back on that. And it is what it is. And it still says that that was a loss, regardless of what anybody thinks about it, regardless of what I think about it. And the good thing with that was I came out with my health. Alex also said that that was the up and probably until the Yoel fight. The
Yoel Romero. He
yeah.
fought Yoel Romero right after that. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Up until that. And in hindsight, that was probably a good thing for me because one, I didn't get fast tracked to a Yoel Romero fight. I had a couple fights to develop before we get a Yoel Romero fight, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I learned a really good lesson without having to take any damage.
Let me expand on that. So you took no damage against a guy that's 9-1 with an 80% finish rate.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a finisher, you know, and I'm more upset. Like I said, I hate losing. So even just talking about it just infuriates me because I lost because of something that was completely in my control. And that was my mindset going into it and not being so focused on proving a point to this guy. At the end of the day, the only things people care about, they forget about how spectacular the finish is. They forget about how boring a fight is. But the one thing they don't forget about is whether you won or lost.
Right.
And so that was, like I said, that was a tough lesson to learn. And I learned it without paying the most drastic price.
Christian Edwards, you win by decision. You end up fighting in your last fight with Karl Albrekson from Sweden. Dude, those guys from Sweden, he's from Pankray, Sweden. It's a different style of fighting it's different. It's weird. All of them kind of have those little nuances too.
Yeah, it was definitely a weird style. But we stuck to the game plan, and kudos to him because we game planned heavy for this guy. I did a 10-week camp because we knew that he would break in the third period. Because in all of his fights prior to this fight, he was getting gassed by the third period. And he, I think, in his camp saw that, and they really fixed that for this fight. So he was still there in the third, and I was pushing the pace and really like putting a pace on him the entire fight and making him think and making him miss. Like I made him miss a ton, and he was still there. So it was awesome that he was able to develop his game, but our game plan ultimately prevailed in that one. And that was a real, for me, I was very proud of that fight because I stuck to the game plan and did everything that my coaches asked me to do. The only other thing would have been, in my book, would have been the finish, but we did. I mean, he was a tough guy.
Wow. Here, I mean, let's define tough. He's got a win over Victor Nemkov.
Yeah.
I mean, let's define tough. I mean, that is somebody that is competing at very, very high levels of fighting.
Yeah. And I mean, he took Yuri. This is what I'm saying. When he fought Yuri, I don't know if you were able to watch that fight or even knew that fight happened.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
He was beating the shit out of Yuri.
Yeah.
Like it was a bad fight for Yuri. And then he gassed out. And so there was a common theme is like, if you can take this dude into deep waters, he's probably going to gas out and you're going to be able to start to impose your will. He fixed that in my fight, which is development to him.
Yeah. And you know, I will say, like, up until this point, you're super positive. Like everything you got going on, you surround yourself with winners. Like you are who you hang out with. I mean, exactly. You are who you hang out with, but your life has not always been easy for you. Like it really hasn't. Like you have faced adversity in your life at points where I think a lot of people would have broken.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, I have not had the quote unquote easiest life, but
No.
the big thing about it is most fighters don't, you know. A lot of fighters have reasons that they fight or things that they're fighting for. And yeah, my life is was definitely difficult. But I think difficulties is definitely subjective.
Okay.
So like my difficult is a different bar than somebody else's difficult. That does not mean that their life isn't difficult as well.
Yeah. Everybody's normal is different. Yeah.
Exactly. So
And
I just, yeah, I just had I think that was probably one of the biggest lessons that I learned.
well, and if you don't have to comment on this, but I think I'd like to kind of surmise for everybody at home. I exhaustively researched what took place with you. This gentleman right here goes away to college on a wrestling and football scholarship, gets there, goes on a few dates with a personal trainer, which is kind of a no-no. I shouldn't say it's no, it's just frowned upon. You know, they try to kind of keep the students and athletes separate with each other. You guys are intending on a relationship. Another personal trainer hears about it, makes a false accusation to where you and the person that you had a relationship with both say everything was consensual, but a person that had nothing to do with the situation says, no, it wasn't. And that person's word meant getting you kicked out of school.
Yep.
That's what it is. I mean, that's
Yep.
And just so everybody knows, like, oh, there's two sides to this or three sides of the story. The consensual person that he was in a relationship with had to get her parents involved to take your side along with her. That's how screwed up the system was for you. And it was almost as if the demand for a bad guy far outweighed, the actual bad people doing things. And they desperately, desperately wanted to make an example of you. And you never bent. You never broke bad on anybody. You never named the alleged victim. You never did any of that. You held your head high. And that, I mean, it's incredible to watch how that played out.
I really appreciate that. I mean, it gives me chills even thinking about it. Because that was such a difficult position in my life, but not even just difficult for me. I just think about, so it's just a background. I was honor roll student, never drank during football season, never smoked, nothing. I didn't
Straight
go to
edge.
crazy party.
Yeah.
I was very strict. I'm just disciplined because I had a goal and I'm a very goal oriented person. And I told you I love to win. And so if anything was going to distract me from my goal of winning and ultimately not losing, if anything was going to bring me closer to losing, I was not going to do it. And so I was a very focused person, and that's just, everybody knew that about me. On my team, on campus, teachers, professors, everything like that. And so I thought it would have been really easy for me to allow this to either railroad me or to not use my name and just get my life back in a different facet, and just John Doe or something like that. But not only, I really wanted to make sure that people knew that this happened. I'm going to stand on my name. I really am a firm believer. If you do nothing wrong, you need to stand on it, and you need to be loud about it, and you need to stand on your name. There's nothing to be scared of if you don't do anything wrong.
Okay, you say that as an adult. Now, I mean, you're 27, but you're talking about 19, 20-year-old kid that just doesn't have the life experience, and the outrage and cancel culture is, starting to peak. You're on a college campus where, I mean, it's encouraged. And I'll tell you what, man, you were so polished handling this. You went on Fox News And it's pretty much scrubbed. It's really difficult to find unless you look for it word for word. But the way you handled yourself, man, like as a parent, if my daughter's dating somebody like you, I'm a proud father.
I really, really appreciate that. And that means the world to me, because it was, regardless of how you get through or handle it, it doesn't mean that it wasn't difficult. There was many sleepless nights. There was many times of me contemplating what I'm gonna do next. I mean, one day you have your dream, and then the next day it's ripped from you unjustifiably so. And as a 19, 20-year-old kid, that
did nothing wrong. That did nothing wrong.
Exactly. I mean, it's one thing if you made a mistake, or like people make mistakes, but I was doing everything the right way, and it still happened. So I'm thinking about, okay, what about my teammate that maybe didn't come from a awesome support system, or maybe has had some questionable character issues
in the past.
And maybe he didn't do something like this, but who's to say that they're not, that this guy would just be railroaded. He wouldn't be able to stand on his character, wouldn't be able to stand on his own name. And more so than for me, I was doing it for the other people.
Man, bro, I'll tell you, I'm going to tell you, one other thing in regards to yourself that's impressive. It's you're a team player. And there's no doubt about that. And the greater good of the team sometimes far outweighs your personal wants. And this is one of those situations. And this is kind of where it comes to a head, where people understand what type of character you have.
I really appreciate that, Mike. And I mean, it's not the most fun. I mean, I've had at the beginning of my career, now it's kind of, after speaking on Capitol Hill and doing that kind of stuff, it's kind of been a different story. But even when I was just getting into Bellator, I had a couple companies reach out to me. And just because it was still the height of the cancel culture and stuff, not even knowing anything with my situation, they're like, well, your name is associated with this.
You're associated with what? A consensual relationship between two adults?
Yeah.
Hey, man. People do it.
I mean, I lot that still to this day is it's fuel. And I won't name the people that did that, but it's fuel. It's a big company too. And since then they've definitely reached out and stuff, but I will never forget it. And it is one of the things that fuel my fire with an intense flame. And I will never forget it.
Well, here, let's talk about other things. Let's end on a high note. We're going to talk about some training partners that you had. Curtis Blades, you mentioned him earlier.
Yep. Yeah, Curtis. I mean, he's awesome. We cross train. And so it's more on a sporadic basis with Curtis Blades, but man, we hang out all summertime, cross train. So
he's another Chicago boy. Boy. Good thing that he got out of here too, man. He did the right thing.
I think it was the best thing for him.
Father and brother, both on the Chicago Police Department with stellar reputations as well. Pat Barry.
Oh man, that's Papa Pat, man. He is a phenomenal mentor. I mean, I think he's the first person in the UFC to get a leg kick KO.
Yes, Sherman Pendergrast. Oh my God! Okay, listen to this. No notes on that. Sherman Pendergrast. Yes. Yeah, I don't know why I even know that. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was like he got shot too. It looked like he got shot. He just kind of fell down like a tree. Yeah.
And I mean, he's helped me out a ton in my career, and Rose as well. Rose has been phenomenal. That's big little sis right there.
I think Pat Barry is an underappreciated coach and talent as well. I think that
he's great.
Yeah, people taking pot shots at him and poking fun at his relationship, which is two consenting adults. I think it's more jealousy than anything because he's literally a very, very talented guy. Muhammad Usman.
Yeah, I'm actually going out. I have the pleasure of training with Muhammad, and he's a new addition to the team for about now a year and a half. And we're going out next week. He's got a big fight. If you guys want to tune in, it's April 22nd. He's fighting Junior Tafa. I'll be out there in his corner as well.
Kick ass, dude. What about Elliot Marshall?
Elliot Marshall, he's the head of Easton's Training Academy and the professor of my professor. He gave my professor his black belt. So Professor Elliott's been awesome, and in the way that he handles my jiu-jitsu programming and helping me out, giving me pointers and tips along my career. He's a great person.
Austin Hubbard.
Oh, man, Austin. Austin is an absolute stud. Yeah, I love that dude. Recently, we haven't been as close in training, but I will always admire what that dude has done, what he continues to do, and the man that he is.
Luke Caudillo. Luke Caudillo.
Oh, yeah. Coach Luke, Little Hulk, Luke Caudillo.
Yeah.
If you don't know, now you know. Little Hulk was an absolute terror in the UFC before they were making all the big bucks, and he has been such an inspiration to me. He was the first person to hold mitts for me at my gym. Really has been a big part of the success that I have and the success that I continue to have. An awesome family man, a great mentor, a phenomenal hunter, and I love him to death.
Yeah, I got to see him fight 3 or 4 times regionally, before he made the move. All right, we're going to close with one more. Chaz Moss.
Oh, Chaz Moss, that is my guy. He is probably one of the most decorated people on that list. Multiple time Special Olympics champion. He kicks my butt in bowling. He shows up to every single fight of mine that he can make. He missed a couple during COVID, unfortunately, but that's my brother. That's my guy. He's family, and I love him to death. So it's awesome to have such a great support system. And I mean, he's definitely a big motivating factor in my life.
That's excellent. And just think about that. You got a special needs kid going out of his way to watch you fight. You take him bowling, man, it speaks volumes of your character. Ladies and gentlemen, get on the Grant Neal train, because I think you screw around a couple times, you're going to end up with a belt around your waist, man. It's very impressive the way you handle yourself.
I will get the belt. I'm looking at you in the eyes right now, Mike, and that belt will be around my waist.
Grant Neal, thanks for joining us. And big shout out Canyon. Dude, Canyon came through for me, man.
Oh, Canyon Smith is a phenomenal guy. And honestly, he came out here. He hit me up. He goes, Grant, I need to get ready for this fight. It's like, Canyon, you always have a place. You come here, your family, you come out and train. And he got to see what Colorado was all about from a training standpoint.
So Canyon Smith, I mean, obviously I've called a few of his fights. I think he works on his hand speed and he gets his mind right. That guy's competing at the next level. Big time. Yeah.
I mean, I think not just competing at the next level. I think he can go for titles at the next level.
Dude, he is a special athlete, man. And like the way he fights, that inside counter punching while walking forward. Man, that's problematic.
Walking forward, counter punching, can move backwards. His wrestling is developing. He needs to keep on the jiu-jitsu as well. He does that and gets more comfortable. It's just going to take cage time. when that dude gets enough cage time, he's going to be a tough outing for anybody in the world.
Yeah, I'm at probably about 25 to 30 MMA events a year, most of the time behind the microphone. And I know talent when I see it. I called a fight that he had lost on the amateur circuit. I was more impressed with him on a loss than I would have been in a win. It showed you everything that kid was made of, and it's incredibly impressive.
Oh, exactly. And I can't. I've known him since we were knee high to a duck. So I'm a little biased, but I also I know his talent. I know his work ethic. He's another dude that absolutely hates losing. Yeah,
you guys are the same. You guys are kind of built of the same cloth, speak like each other, surround yourself with the same types of people. Very impressive. Grant Neal, thank you so much, man. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Mike Davis, I appreciate it. I really do.
Be good, man.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.